Bismillah, Assalamu alaikum. In today's video, I'll be making another argument for the existence of God. This is namely the argument from biological information. Now, this is one of the two main ID intelligent design arguments for the existence of God. Let's get started. So, before I make the argument, I have to give you a basic background of what Darwinian evolution is and the information that's relevant to Darwinian evolution and how information is involved in Darwinian evolution and why that's relevant. So, here's just a basic background. In 1953, when Watson and Crick discovered the structure of DNA, they also discovered that the DNA stores information in form of a 4-character alphabetic code. Strings of precisely sequenced chemicals called nucleotide bases store and transmit assembly instructions, the information for building crucial protein molecules and protein machines the cell needs to survive. Crick later developed this idea with his famous sequence hypothesis, according to which the chemical parts of DNA, these nucleotide bases, function like letters in a written language or symbols in a computer code, just as letters in English sentence or digital characters in a computer program may convey information depending on their arrangement. So too do certain sequences of chemical base pairs along the spine of DNA molecule convey precise instructions for building proteins. Now this is something mainstream, like no one in their right mind will deny this. No atheist in their right mind will deny this. This is mainstream. Basically, now with regards to Darwinian evolution, basically what Darwinian evolution is that when the DNA is transformed from when it is copied from parent to offspring, right? There are minor changes in the genetic information. These minor changes are called mutations, which are basically copying errors in all, and these copying errors supposedly result in all of the diversity of life from plants and animals, from and even as diverse animals as dinosaurs and humans. So basically these minor copying errors are supposedly responsible for all this life. This is basically the same as is basically saying if you copy a particular sentence while changing a letter, that would lead to a coherent sentence. I mean, just think about this. I will go into the detailed refutation of this, but think about how irrational and difficult this is, and I'll just give one example of this. Look at the two sentences here. This is a book. This is a coherent sentence, right? The next sentence is das is a book. This is gibberish. It doesn't make sense, right? This is not a coherent sentence, and just by changing one letter, how easily the meaning and information is lost. So this is what Darwinists are claiming that basically leads to all of diversity in life. Now, before I go further, let me explain what's the definition of information and how that is involved here. So, in the 1940s, Claude Shannon basically came up with a mathematical theory of information. In this theory, information is equated with a reduction of certainty. And what this basically means is the number of possible outcomes are basically one outcome is selected from a set of possible outcomes. For instance, suppose you are writing a sentence that has 20 letters. Each letter can be one of the 26 alphabets, right? When you choose for the first letter, for instance A, B, C or whatever, that is informative. Why? Because it reduces the uncertainty. Why? Because before you choose the letter for each position, the alphabet for each position, there are 26 options. After that, when there's the particular letter or alphabet is chosen, that uncertainty is removed. So this is information in a mathematical sense. In this sense, both of the following sentences have the same information. My name is Amar, and the sentence next to it, this is basically gibberish. Now both of these sentences have equal Shannon information. This is not the type of information present in DNA. This can be gibberish, but this is not the type of information present in DNA. Both of those sentences contain the same amount of Shannon information, but only one of those two sentences has functional specified information. I think it's clear. I'll give a definition for this, but from the first sentence, my name is Amar, I think it should be evident what functional specified means. It has a meaning, it is giving specific information, it's conveying something specific, right? So just to give a basic definition of functional specified information, this would be its alternative sequences or arrangements of characters that produce a specific effect, right? This is the information involved here. Now just to show you that I am not lying about this, I'll just give two references regarding information in DNA and what the DNA is basically like. Richard Dawkins notes that the machine code of the genes is uncannily computer-like. Bill Gates observes that DNA is like a computer program, but he called it far more complex than anything ever designed by humans. I think this is what he said, and these are famous references. This is not something I'm making up. So I think this should convey to you that the information basically is like a computer code. It's functional specified information. It's not gibberish, right? Now, here's the argument, and it's really quite a simple argument. In our experience, in our collective experience, massive amounts of information is only produced by intelligent minds, right? In any cases, in computer, when a programmer is writing a computer code, when an architect is designing a building, when an creative writer is writing an essay or whatever, massive amounts of information are only produced by intelligent minds. The pattern of fossil record, which I've made a video on, is basically of sudden explosions, which basically means at specific time points in the fossil record there are there's a massive increase in the diversity of life, which means there was a massive increase in the biological information. This happens again and again, and one example of this is the Cambrian explosion, but there are dozens of examples of this. Now these are because in our experience the massive bursts of information are only produced by intelligent minds, right? These are sets of massive bursts of information. Hence this massive amount of information is explained and caused by an intelligent mind. So the argument is quite simple, quite powerful, right? Now there are two basic contentions to this. The new genetic information can be produced by physical necessity, or it can be produced by random copying errors, basically chance, right? Now I'll deal with each of these. Firstly, the point about necessity. Physical necessity or physical processes cannot produce complex specified information. Why? Physical processes, right, they can produce patterns. They cannot produce information. For example, a physical process could produce something like AB, 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 right? Like a pattern. This is what physical processes can do. This is what necessity can achieve. Or it can achieve a pattern like AGH, 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 on and on. But patterns like this and other patterns like this can be produced by physical necessity, but not coherent information like my name is Ahmed or this presentation has black or green background. That cannot be produced by physical just blind necessity. Physical processes cannot know this, do this, and through our experience of physical processes we can know what they can and can't generate, right? So this deals with necessity. What about chance? Now the claim is with Darwinian evolution basically that chance can produce functional protein sequences or beneficial mutations, and then natural selection can preserve them, right? But this cannot happen, and there's actually a very simple reason for this. Through peer-reviewed studies, we know that the number of functional gene sequences, right, is much smaller than the number of possible gene sequences. And there's a study by the scientist Doug Axe. Now this guy is an ID proponent, but his study was published in mainstream biology journals, and it was peer reviewed by evolutionary biologists. And there are other studies like this as well. Basically the study showed that the number of functional gene sequences to the number of total sequences is basically 1 over 10 to the power 77. Now here understand how improbable this is. 1 is the numerator, the denominator is 10 to the power of 77. This is an exceedingly minute number of functional beneficial mutations, beneficial gene sequences compared to total possible gene sequences. Now, basically, while giving a very generous estimate, right, in this regard, now let's suppose very generously that the number of organisms throughout history, right, total life forms is 10 to the power 40, and a mutation takes place each of those when each of those life forms emerge, right. This is basically mutations. I explained this early in the video. Now let's suppose that happens, right. So what are the odds of basically functional mutations happening by chance? Well, the odds of this would be 10 to the power 40 divided by 10 to the power 77. So basically the probability of one functional mutation, and for life to emerge, numerous mutations, I mean countless mutations, beneficial mutations have taken place, but for life to the odds of one functional mutation to take place, the beneficial mutation to take place, the odds are 1 over 10 to the power 37. Basically I'm just dividing these two by each other. That is exceedingly improbable. I mean, this is the, like, those odds are like the fine-tuning odds. Even with the very generous estimate, there is simply not enough time for one beneficial mutation to take place by chance. Hence, chance is out as an explanation, necessity is out as an explanation. The option left is design. I don't think there's any way around this. Now, there are two more contentions to this argument, and honestly I think I might make a few more videos on this to flesh this argument out and to cover more aspects of it, and I do intend to make more videos on ID and evolution, right? So the contention basically with regards to this argument, there are two other contentions. One contention is God of the gaps. Now basically the atheist claim is that this is God of the gaps because basically they assume that this is an argument for God using a design, so hence this must be God of the gaps. This doesn't work, and moreover there's a major flaw with how atheists apply the God of the gaps argument. Why? Because if the God of the gaps argument is that we don't know a physical process, therefore God did it, this is a fallacy, right? This type of argument would be flawed. But if the claim is we don't know a blind random process, right, therefore invoking design is wrong, then that's God of the gaps. Then this is also a fallacy, but here the fallacy is committed by the atheist because they are using circular reasoning. They are assuming that a blind materialistic explanation exists, so this doesn't work. Moreover, this is not a God of the gaps argument that we don't know something therefore God did it. This is the exact opposite of it. Why? Because the argument is based on what it takes to produce massive amounts of information, right? In our experience, we know minds produce massive amounts of information. Massive amounts of information are required here, and they have been produced, and they are hence most likely explained or caused by an intelligent mind. So this is not because we don't know God did it. This is because we know what produces information, and therefore there is an intelligent designer or cause behind biological life. So this contention is dead. Another contention is usually made is that basically a lot of new genes are not required to life, and so basically the genetic information could have been produced by chance. This doesn't work for two reasons. Firstly, there is a lot of genetic information that's just like, this is way too much. Even if it is spread out over a time period, right, even then that information requires explanation, and that cannot be chance or necessity because of the points I made earlier. But there's an even bigger problem because there are recent scientific studies in the and papers in the past few years that have shown that for biological life to emerge, new genes were required. Hence and I can link some in the video description maybe later. Hence this contention is also dead. So again, I don't think there is any response to this argument or any way around this argument. In conclusion, I think I hope you have seen that this is an absolutely massive argument for the existence of God, and honestly there is no way around this. Someone can try to claim that evolution or Darwinian evolution are better explanations, but I think the videos I've made regarding genetics, embryology, fossil record, they seriously disprove Darwinian evolution. I don't think there's any way around this, and in fact even in those videos I was just quoting mainstream evolutionary biologists. Like the fossil record or genetics not supporting Darwinian evolution, this is not something I am making up. I am quoting references and anyone can go check them up. So really there is no way around intelligent design, because it can be argued on its own merits. Now inshallah I'll keep making more content like this. I won't be as regular as I used to be because I'm simply busy with a lot of other stuff, but inshallah I'll try to make a video at least every week or every 2 weeks. Till next time, assalamu alaikum.